The space race is coming to the Dominican Republic. Or is it? A remote town in the southwest corner of DR just got selected as the site for a commercial spaceport. We're talking rockets, we're talking satellites, the whole enchilada, maybe even enchiladas. And it's $600 million being invested. First launch, 2028. Yeah. And look, I've got a very strong position on whether or not this actually happens, what it means for the Dominican Republic, and most importantly, what has to go right to avoid what happens when big money comes to small towns. This will be the most in-depth video that you can find anywhere about space exploration and its home here in DR, I guarantee it. Let's dive in.
When Launch on Demand went looking for the place to put its new spaceport, the Dominican Republic fit the bill in terms of geography and population density. But it also turned out to be a section of the country badly in need of development, which the new facility is designed to provide.
Este mes firmamos un acuerdo histórico con la empresa estadounidense Launch on Demand, LOD Holding, para el desarrollo de un puerto espacial comercial en Oviedo, en Pedernales.
That announcement was made in February. And I'll be honest, my first reaction to a spaceport being built down here was like, mañana. You know, mañana, like tomorrow, maybe, or some point in the future, maybe. I mean, look, big press conference, some little remote town nobody's ever heard of, and a president at the podium saying historic agreement. We've seen historic agreements before. Some happen, some don't. And I first thought like, yeah, probably, but man, with everything else going on, it's got to be very low priority. But then I changed my mind, and here's why. China has 11 space stations operating right now across Latin America. Argentina, Venezuela, Bolivia, Chile, Brazil, ground stations like deep space tracking networks. But even more than that, a U.S. House Select Committee report, which was released earlier in 2026, identified them as dual-use military infrastructure linked directly to China. So do I think this is going to happen sooner rather than later? You're darn tootin', I do. The U.S. isn't going to sit back and watch this happen in their backyard. The Monroe Doctrine is back, now called the Donroe Doctrine, if you haven't heard. And the Dominican Republic is the most U.S.-aligned country in Latin America right now. We have military support for Venezuela operations. You have third country deportee holding in Dominican Republic on behalf of the United States. DR is an active member of the Shield of the Americas Commission or group of Latin American countries. And you had visit from some of the top cabinet members in the United States like Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth. And in return, you see all this positive press and positive language citing State Department quotes about DR's growth and its partnership in the region. Trump's out there saying, we love Dominican Republic, we love it. And Abinader is saying, we love you too. It's my best Abinader impression. I don't know how I did. You have to let me know down below. So the U.S. doesn't just want a commercially operated, U.S.-aligned launch pad in the Caribbean. It needs it now. And DR said, hey, we're in. And now we'll slather on the business case for all of this. U.S. launch sites currently have a 2-year backlog for commercial satellite operators. The space economy is projected to be north of $600 billion. And the DR is in an interesting spot, specifically 18 degrees north latitude. We all know that. I guess the geographic kind of like sweet spot for orbital launches that gives rockets extra velocity from the Earth's rotation. It's almost like one of those fast merengue dancers when he gets going and spinning the woman around. She's going to take off at some point. I've seen it. Now, in this case, this is a private $600 million investment. No Dominican public funds. And the leadership team is out of NASA, SpaceX, Blue Origin. I mean, holy cow. There have been 3 years of feasibility studies before this announcement, and now you have a company, Launch on Demand, that needs this to work. Their money is fully on the line. So you're seeing a full-on business plan, not mañana, like I initially thought. So I think this happens. I think it happens faster than many expect. So the question pivots away from whether or not it will be, at least for me, to what does success look like and what happens to the people living in that area. Let's talk about Kourou. I think it's Kourou. That's the word. However you say that word, I say Kourou. We're going with it. Back in 1968, the European Space Agency needed a launch site. They went out there with their 1968 accent like, hey, see, we need a place to launch, see? We need it close to the equator, see? Can't have a lot of people there, low population, see? And we need some space there with nothing in the way, see? I'm done with 1968. Yeah, it's only 10 years older than me, but for some reason it feels like way back before me, so. So anyway, they need all that stuff. And they find this little coastal city in French Guiana called Kourou. Kourou. It's defined as a former penal colony, which I think is a hilarious word to say. It was remote, it was underdeveloped, it had an agricultural economy, and it had a very scattered population from everything I've researched. But Kourou today is a success story by many measures. It's the commercial launch hub for European space operations. They've got roads, hospitals, telecommunications, schools, and they're all built around the spaceport for that community and those workers. There are thousands of direct jobs, thousands of indirect jobs, all in this area because of the spaceport. I mean, it's the economic backbone for that area for like the last 50 years. And what I've read, it contributes up to 13% of GDP for French Guiana. Crazy. So I want to know, why did it work, or why does it work? And I found a few different reasons. Number one, the framework was transparent from the start. There was a formal public agreement with infrastructure commitments, like binding commitments around building infrastructure in that area, and everybody could see it. So the community's like economic fate, or the economy itself, was linked directly to the success of the spaceport. The community wasn't just subjected to the footprint of the spaceport and just told to deal with it. And that to me is a key reason for the success of that project. The community wins when the spaceport wins, which means you get advocacy. But when the community has to absorb the cost while the revenue goes somewhere else, that creates resistance. Resistance is no bueno. Not good for anybody. It kills everything. So we want to avoid that. So Kourou, whatever, is the ceiling. It's the best case, it's aspirational for Pedernales. It's what's possible when things are done right. But then there's the other end of the spectrum. There's a place in Brazil called Alcântara. Not bad. It's on the northeast coast, it's near the equator, and this is the crazy part, especially when we're talking about not success. It has a better geographic profile to launch satellites and rockets than Cape frickin' Canaveral. You hear that? Better than Cape Canaveral. So then why is it not one of the most important spaceports in the world right now? I'll tell you why. In the 80s, Brazil's dictatorship, the military dictatorship there, built a launch center in Alcântara. And the members of the local communities who were like native, they were like native to Brazil, were just moved. They had lived there, they had fished there, it was everything. The land was everything for them. There was no compensation framework or compensation at all. There was no legal recourse that they could use. So 1,500 people moved inland without even enough land to survive. The access to coastal fishing, completely blocked. So this whole entire thing fell into litigation for 40 freaking years. Until in 2024, an Inter-American Court of Human Rights convicted Brazil. Brazil had to make a formal public apology, and land titles were redelivered to these indigenous people last year, 2025. 40 years later. In that same vein, we'll go over to Argentina, because there was another one that I researched and found that was not a successful launch port, spaceport. This one was built by China, a deep space tracking station in a specific province that I can't read. I don't know the name of that. But what's crazy is, under that agreement, as I looked into this, that land became Chinese territory, sovereign territory of China in Argentina. And Argentina is legally barred from doing anything, from interfering, from getting involved, anything. And what did the local community get? Like couple hundred jobs and a black box in the desert that they can't inspect. Years later, nothing's changed. No growth, no infrastructure, no prosperity for that community. So there's a pattern between Brazil and Argentina, these two agreements. They're structured at the national level, they look good on paper, and there are no community protections, or if there are, they were never enforced. But look, let's bring this even closer to home here in the Dominican Republic. When we're talking about commercial development of remote territory, you can't not talk about Cotuí. If you're not familiar, Cotuí is about 2 hours from Santo Domingo, the capital city, and it's home to one of the largest gold mines in the entire world. It's the Pueblo Viejo gold mine, and it's operated by a company called Barrick out of Canada. The town has 4 rivers in it that the local people rely upon for water. 3 of them have been blocked. They're polluted, degraded, not good. In fact, the Dominican Ministry of Environment tested one of the rivers and found heavy pollution downstream from the mine. Barrick disputed it, but nothing's really happened. About 1.5 years ago, I went to Cotuí during protests over this 4th river. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I stood in this town. I went to people's homes. I had conversations. In fact, this woman here, I visited her home. Barrick was coming through there to build a road right where her house is. They offered her money, but it's a number that she says is well below the actual value of the land. I mean, I don't know, but just sharing what she told me. But I don't see really any framework for her to push back. In fact, she even said, like, if I get a fair offer on the land, I'll move. It's fine, no biggie. But I don't know of any published agreement she could point to, a community advocate that has legal standing, somebody that she could leverage. I don't know of any. Now, in the case of the water there, when it became unsafe, Barrick did start to bring water into town for people. At a point, it sounded like it was a limited quantity, like 8 bottles per week per family, but I think that stopped and they just bring water. But somebody in Cotuí would know better than me. Now, in terms of the actual deal that Barrick has with the Dominican Republic, it stipulates that 5% of royalties should flow to the local province, but I'm hearing that it's never been paid. In fact, can I geek out for a second? I looked at the actual contract structure for this, and I kind of overlaid my lens of having raised capital and run deals in the United States for real estate. Here's the details. Barrick gets a 25-year lease with an automatic option to renew for another 25 years at their sole discretion. Not DR, they have no say in it. Barrick can just decide we're going to extend. And Barrick gets up to 75 years total. I mean, okay, fine. There's a gold mine there. They're going to renew. You give them that. But there's more. The profit sharing that the Dominican government receives does not kick in until Barrick hits 2 milestones, or maybe waterfalls for those of you in the investment space. Number 1 is a full recouping of their own investment. So Barrick gets their money back before DR can collect. But there's one more. It also has to generate a 10% return. In real estate terms, this blows my mind. If I'm the guy bringing the deal, I'm known as the GP, or general partner. I'm going to bring the deal, I'm going to raise the capital, I'm going to operate it, and I'm going to promise a set of returns. In this case, let's say a 10% preferred return to my investor base. And I run operations. And because I run the operation, then the limited partners, the parties that invest, they get their money first before I get to collect any profit. It's the way it should be. You put money in, you get first priority in the capital stack for a return before I get my money and my profit on the back end. But in this case, Barrick is the operator, the GP in many ways, and they're getting LP style returns. They get the pref before the owner of the land, the country, gets any. So it's flipped. Barrick is the operator of the deal, and they get the first priority in the capital stack. And DR, whose land it is and whose resources are being extracted, is sitting in the general partner seat waiting to be paid last. I mean, good for Barrick, I guess. Anyway, let's go back to, I said 5% royalties from Barrick are supposed to flow to the local communities, and it's reported that that's not happening. True or not true, I don't know, but I do know this.
I suggested to the President of the Dominican Republic to put a Tasa, not a tax, because tax have to go to Congress, a Tasa at the airport for tourist infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Okay? And we agree on a number. And now we agree verbally that 60% of that was going to be used for the infrastructure in the area, the province that generated. In our case, La Altagracia.
Interesting.
Could be from Isla Saona to Nisibon, but in the area. The airport in Santo Domingo will do it for Boca Chica to Santo Domingo, Santiago, Moca, and Santiago, and like that in every area. Well, if you take the record, and that was more than a decade ago, so it has been on the last 3 governments, they have not invested in this province 10%. Wow. What will generate.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that generates only over here dozens of millions of dollars a year. As a matter of fact, around $90 million last year.
That's Frank Rainieri. He's one of the most important builders, entrepreneurs in the country's history. And he's telling me the same story in a different industry. The airport Tasa, a large percentage of which is supposed to go back into the community, generating, as he said, about $90 million per year for infrastructure. Most of it doesn't. Same pattern, different industry. So with Cotuí, the money gets structured at the national level and the local community doesn't see it. Not because the deal was necessarily bad on paper, although I have my concerns, but because there was nothing that actually forced the money to flow. So that's the Barrick lesson, the Cotuí lesson that we've learned in country. So where then does Launch on Demand and their agreement with DR, where does it sit? Look, real quick, if you want to go deeper on discussions like this, get your questions answered, interact with 1,200 other people that are living in, moving to, or investing in DR, I would love to see you inside of our DR Inner Circle. My wife and I have curated an amazing community of people, and we're offering so many member benefits that it's almost becoming silly not to be a member, to be honest with you. You can scan this QR code right here to go to the website, and I hope you join us, or you can just go to this website right here so you can review and determine if it's right for you. And one other quick ask, if you're getting value from this or other videos of mine, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, I don't know if we'll see each other again. It means a lot for helping me grow this channel, and I actually donate for every subscriber to a local charity called Second Mile Missions to build schools for kids in underprivileged communities. So right there, this subscribe. Okay, so where does the Launch on Demand contract deal actually land between Kourou and Cotuí? Honestly, it's structurally way better than Brazil, than Argentina, and than Cotuí. And here's why. First off, the Dominican Republic retains sovereignty, not handing over territory to the Chinese like we are in Argentina and all of that. There's really no public money truly at risk here. The revenue model is commercial satellite launches. It's not something being dug out of the ground and shipped away like gold or rare earths. That's a whole other discussion. And the INTEC partnership you saw, the college, that's real. Dominican students training in flight safety, aerospace regulatory compliance. What else here? Launch meteorology, and all of this with the stated goal of Dominicans eventually running the spaceport. Here, check it out.
INTEC is a technical university, one of the most premier universities in the Dominican Republic. They produce some of the most talented engineers in the world, in the Caribbean, really. And when we discussed where we were going to get the talent pool from, we wanted to go to the university where that talent was. They have mechanical, electrical, aerospace, all these other engineering and disciplines, technical disciplines that we could leverage. And so we met with the provost and said, listen, we can help you train this workforce. They took it one step further. They said, we're not just going to let you train it, we're going to create a minor. So students can actually participate and learn about the space industry, because after a while, it's going to be Dominicans on console. It's going to be Dominicans that's going to be running the spaceport. We're going to help start it. We're going to help set it, design it, fund it, keep it going. But ultimately, it's going to be the Dominican Republic and primarily the youth of the Dominican Republic that are going to be operating this.
So there you have it. It's a curriculum. It's a workforce strategy over the course of a decade or so. And it's baked into the deal day one. And then you have the infrastructure promise that's baked into this as well. A desalination plant, 200 megawatt power hub, water treatment, so on and so forth. Let me show you this real quick.
So we have, what we are proposing is a 200 megawatt power plant. Power tends to be a very big commodity when it comes to the space industry, and nothing is bigger than how you fuel the rocket. There's other use cases for the energy, but the biggest one is to make sure that you could fuel the rocket uninterrupted without any problems. And also, if let's say they're fueling 2 or 3 rockets at the same time, we have plenty of power in order to do both.
So besides power, besides the place to keep the satellites until they're ready to go up, what else will be on this site?
Interestingly enough, water is a huge problem for space launches. So the system is called a deluge system. So if you look at a launch pad, you'll often see a water tower next to it. And what happens is whenever the rocket is about to lift off or is lifting off, there's huge gallons of water pushed onto the rocket and onto the infrastructure because it dampens the sound. It's not because of a fire, it's because it dampens the sound, because the sound of the rocket lifting off is so extreme it would shake the rocket apart. And so the water, the deluge system, dampens the sound. So once that water is used after the launch, then it's recycled and it's treated. And so when it's treated, then they have to decide what to do with it. And so we need to have ability to get potable water, so we need a desalination. We also have to have a water treatment facility, because after it's done, we're going to treat it, and then we can use it for agricultural purposes. We can use it for lots of variety of purposes for the region.
Let me be really clear and blunt on this. This is just my take. I don't believe in altruism, especially not corporate altruism, but I do believe in self-interest. And what you just saw in that clip is Launch on Demand needs this infrastructure to operate. Water and power aren't optional, and the community benefits because they're already designing and building this out, so it makes sense that it would go to all in that area. It's great press for LOD, why not? So in that regard, that makes me more confident in getting done than some sort of promise of a payback from the business to the government, because we've allegedly seen what's happened with that. But there is some things that are missing. One, this agreement has not yet been published. Remember the whole transparency thing? There's a lot of lawyers that are saying that under international law, the DR government, not Launch on Demand, bears full international responsibility for anything that goes wrong. In addition, there's no community rights framework that's been made public either. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but we just haven't seen it. There's no independent environmental baseline study that we've seen. And look, speaking to Pedernales specifically, it's already the site of a broader development boom that's happening there. And a court just carved out tens of millions of square meters of Jaragua National Park for a private group with specific ties. And local communities are already calling that a land grab. The spaceport has nothing to do with that, to be really clear here. But if it becomes some sort of issue for everything in that area, then Launch on Demand kind of inherits that resistance that we were talking about. So right now, I would say this deal is better than Brazil, it's better than Cotuí, it's better than Argentina, by a mile. Is it already at Kourou though? Not quite, but here's 5 ways that it can get there, based on me thinking about it and coming up with 5 things. It's my channel. All right, I can do what I want. Number one is transparency. Publish the deal before ground breaks. If it's a good deal and the government says it, then show it. From what I know, the Barrick contract, it was ratified by Congress and publicly filed. Without a published agreement, the people of Pedernales don't have a document to hold anyone to. That woman in Cotuí had no framework to push back against because nobody local knew what they were entitled to. That can't happen again. By the way, if you want to see that Cotuí video that I did, it's exclusive to my inner circle. Again, QR code if you want to jump into that. Number two is lock in these community deliverables to the contract as real deliverables, not just talking points. The desalination plant, the power access, the water treatment, write them in with timelines, with enforcement. So far we've heard we plan to provide, which is amazing, and I think they will, but I want to hear we're contractually obligated to. Look, with or without a contractual obligation, I do think that Launch on Demand, everything I've seen about them, is going to abide by their word. There's no reason not to believe that, but it would feel better if you see it contractually obligated. Number three is establish an environmental baseline before all the construction starts. The reason Barrick can dispute contamination claims today is there was no agreed before snapshot of the way things were. So if Launch on Demand's operations are going to be clean, and they've said that they will be, then I would love to see them welcome a third-party baseline environmental study. I mean, it protects them, it protects everybody. Number four is create a direct community equity mechanism, something where they can participate. Maybe a community development fund tied to a percentage of launch revenue. Something that makes the town's economic fate tied to the spaceport winning, not just having to deal with the fact that it's there and whatever happens. Look, I found this. Starbase in South Texas put $147 million into the regional supply chain in a single year. I think DR has an opportunity to build that before the first rocket launches. My take. And number five, I would delineate where the spaceport is and where the rest of the land that we were just talking about is, and separate them and make sure they're very clearly different. Draw the line publicly. Spaceport has this footprint. The tourism master plan has this footprint. The communities there might already be feeling a little bit squeezed. And when they are, they're going to go after whatever they see. And a giant $500 million spaceport is a pretty visible target to go after as the representation of a land grab, even though it's not. Look, here's the breakdown for me. I've said this before. DR is in a moment, an inflection point, if you will. Chapter 1 was tourism. Chapter 2 is all this infrastructure investment. Google, DP World, Amazon, a spaceport. And everybody that's worried about Cuba taking tourism muster away from DR, well, this is a chance for Chapter 2, infrastructure and all of this progress, this technology, to actually be bigger than Chapter 1, potentially.
For a town long described as forgotten, the promise of a spaceport is not only about rockets. It is about whether Oviedo's next generation can imagine a future closer to home, and whether the project can deliver the opportunities local residents hope it will. How do you think the lives of the people who live here will change?
It's going to change a lot. It's going to change a lot because people here don't have a good income. They live with $150 a month for a family of 4. So it's going to really change their lives. They're going to have more opportunities. The kids are going to have dreams of becoming an astronaut or, try to work with a spaceport, try to change who they envision. Usually here, kids don't really know what to dream for. But Launch Demand brought a dream to Oviedo. Oviedo is going to change because of Launch Demand.
You just saw the promise, and I honestly believe in that promise manifesting. I think this will be done right. I think it's the best thing for that community. I think it's an incredible opportunity for them. But remember, Kourou was 50 years in a framework, right? They had very clear deliverables, and you can see, looking back, how to execute in line with that. Cotuí is 13 years in, and by many accounts, it's not going that great. At least the tension between the community and the mine are still at an all-time high. Everything's there. Everything is set for this to be successful. It's really just missing the transparency and the community framework, the binding community framework, to be clear. And we don't know. That might be coming. There's a lot more happening in this story, more than what I'm reporting today. There's a ton of economic news happening in DR right now. In fact, Bank of America weighed in on DR debt. I did that video for you right here. If you want to dive deep on it, you can click on it, take a look. I'll see you on the next one.